Next guest has had the best seat in the house in college football. It's not even arguably. Chris Fallica has had the best seat for a long time, whether it was game day or now on Fox's Big Noon Kickoff. And that's a great show, by the way. I've known Rob Stone forever, Brady Hoke a friend, Matt Leinart, Urban Meyer. Mark Ingram was Coach Saban's first Heisman Trophy winner. We all know that. And Tom Rinaldi and the Bear joins us now. Chris, great to see you. How are you?
I'm doing well, Doug. We're here at the midpoint of the season, and I think we certainly weren't really sure what kind of storylines we were going to get in the first year of the 12-team playoff, but it seems like we might be shaping up for a couple of juicy ones.
Yeah, no doubt. We'll touch on that, but I wanted to ask you because when you look at the glamour names, Michigan defending national champs, Alabama 2 losses before November for the first time in 17 years, Oklahoma's down, USC is down. Chris, is this an anomaly, or is this what we need to get used to because parity is set in the college game?
I think it's a little bit of an anomaly. I think that the biggest shock with me is, especially now in the era of the transfer portal and NIL and being able to go out and kind of pick and choose whatever quarterback you want, the fact that Oklahoma and Michigan and Florida State just don't have quarterbacks.
Right.
Like that is the most astounding thing to me, and the biggest reason why I think those teams are struggling. But I think it's a little bit of an anomaly. But I will say, I do think the fact that you look at last week, Indiana, where Big Noon was last week, they had one of the top quarterback recruits in the country from Georgia in there, and the fact that Indiana is in on this kid shows where we are now in the state of college football, that it's not just the haves and the have-nots in terms of recruiting. Like, if you've got a good collective base and a good recruiting pitch, you've got a chance at some of these elite guys.
Yeah, I'm excited. Listen, we're SEC primarily down where I live, but Indiana, my goodness, that is so exciting. Illinois bouncing back with Brett Bielema. So Bear, how do you see it? Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State right now, I have them in the playoffs, barring some craziness here the last half of the season. But Indiana, Illinois factor in maybe as that fourth school, right?
I don't know if Illinois quite is going to factor in as that fourth school. I don't expect the Illini to go out to Autzen and win this weekend. And I think defensively, they still have some problems. I think that was more just a fact of Michigan being terrible on offense than anything else. So I think if you look at Illinois' schedule, they lose this week, and then you would assume, like, if they were to win out their final 4 games, which they could, 10-2. I'm not sure a 10-2 Illinois without beating either Oregon or Penn State gets there. Indiana's a different story. I think Indiana, they have the potential to win every game with the exception of the Ohio. Now, they could go to Columbus and win, but I think if Indiana wins out, with the exception of the Ohio State game, 11-1 to Indiana, I think, is going to be one of those teams right there on the edge of the top 12 for the college football playoff, because I think a lot will have to do with how severely injured and how Curtis Rourke's thumb comes out of the surgery and how quickly that heals. But I was super impressed with Indiana offensively last week. We'll see if they can match up with some of the bigger, faster teams in the Big Ten. But the only thing is, really, Ohio State's all they got to worry about remaining around this guy. Michigan's defense is good, and I'm sure they will give them some problems. But IU is probably going to be able to score on most games that they play.
Yeah, Curt Cignetti was with Coach Saban for about 3 seasons. Did a great job as the wide receivers coach and recruiting coordinator. Little did we know that he would turn out to be one heck of a head coach wherever he's been. That might be the top story in college football right now, Bear.
It really could be. We were kicking. It was funny. Mark Ingram was kicking around, reminding him about how Coach Cignetti was recruiting him, and I know they had a nice embrace on the field prior to the game. But I would think right now he's got to be the front runner for the Brian Coach of the Year award. I know Dan Lanning and Oregon are undefeated, and I know Matt Campbell and Iowa State are undefeated, and there's some other programs out there doing well, but the fact that Indiana is sitting here where they are and getting close to the calendar turning into November, and they're undefeated, and we're talking about Indiana football and the college football playoff. I would think this guy should clearly be the favorite for the award right now, and I'm not sure they even need to beat Ohio State for him to win that award.
It really has been a remarkable season. Hey, let's bring it down to the SEC because, we live and breathe it every day, as you know. And I really believe Georgia and, in my mind, Texas A&M are the two best teams. I think A&M will show that against LSU again. Defensively, I mean, Bear, they're aggressive, overly aggressive at times, but they intimidate teams. And then I think potentially two other SEC schools are going to get in, but I don't know. You got 4 or 5 that have opportunities, including Alabama. They're not dead yet, right?
No, not at all. I mean, the next 2 weeks will certainly dictate whether they're in or out. It's funny, I was alluding to at the top of the segment about how we have some potentially juicy, interesting storylines. Could you imagine having a 9-3 Alabama team? I'm sure people don't want to hear that because they want Alabama to beat Missouri and go to Baton Rouge and win in a couple of weeks. But could you imagine if Alabama were to drop one of these 2 games, finish 9-3? You've got a win over Georgia, who might be the number 1 team in the country by the end of the year, and maybe not get in the playoff. Like, that would be something that would be completely unheard of. But I worry about Alabama. Not this week. I don't think Missouri is very good. They're a team that probably should have lost to Vanderbilt on their home field. They probably should have lost to Auburn on their home field, and they were very fortunate to beat Boston College on their home field. So I think even with the injuries that they have with Cook and Noel, I would expect Alabama, as bad as they have been defensively and their ability to get teams off the field, I think they'll win this week. The issue I have with Alabama is I just wonder if we're beginning to see kind of a cumulative effect of all of the hits that Jalen Miller was taking, not only from the offensive line passing, but he's got so many more carries than the top running back. Like, that's going to take a toll over the course of the year. So I think you get by this week, you beat Missouri at home, you get the idle week, which I think they badly need, and then you go to LSU and take your chances down there.
Well, listen, 2 weeks ago I was talking about the quarterback runs that they were calling. A year ago, Jalen scrambled a lot, but against Georgia, they pulled that out, those quarterback runs. And, man, he's been taking some shots, Chris. And those, as you know, he's a big kid, 6'3", 230, athletic. But the more you get hit, the more it takes its toll. I'm afraid he's taken too many hits at the halfway point of the season.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And look, they did what they needed to do to beat Georgia early in the year, and that's going to be a win. We're going to look back on December 8th or 9th, whatever that Sunday is for Selection Day, and be like, that could be the thing that does get them in the college football play. But I do think they need to kind of figure out some ways to have him less involved in the running game, and maybe his runs are not necessarily designed runs, but just kind of him taking off and scrambling if wide receivers are covered downfield.
Hey, Bear, I know you're a University of Miami guy, and I'm listening to Michael Irvin all the time. He's on the sidelines for all these games. Cam Ward's having a great year, and they've won some close ones, and they've gotten a few calls here and there. But it looks like this could be a magical year for the U.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. It kind of feels a little TCU 2022-ish to me, which obviously if they make the college football championship game and lose 65-7 to Georgia, I'd probably be a little disappointed, but in a couple weeks afterwards, but I think you look at defensively, yeah, they've got some problems. You win the 3 one-score games in a row. What is it, 117 points, I think, they've allowed in the last 3 weeks. But with Cam Ward and offense, they're going to score on anyone. Now, the issue is going to be if and when they make the college football playoff and they meet up with a defense like Georgia or A&M or someone like that, are they going to be able to have as much success as they are right now? Because, look, the ACC is not a great league. Even Clemson, which has been built and known for defense over the last 12 years or so, they are nowhere near the team that they were defensively. So I would expect Miami to navigate this ACC schedule, at least get to the ACC championship game and find their way in the playoff. I don't know if I consider the Canes a true national championship contender, just because defensively I don't think they can get many stops. But at the same time, from where this program has been, and to finally see a legitimate quarterback in Cam Ward, who's right up there for the Heisman Trophy, to have threats on the outside with Restrepo and Arroyo and Horton, some of the guys that they have brought in. You bring in Damian Martinez, who's been able to get some tough yards. As an alum, it feels really good to have the calendar, like I said, getting to November here, and you're interested in the college football season, seriously invested with knowing your team has a shot to make a pretty deep run this year.
Absolutely, and I'm a Mario Cristobal fan. Have been ever since he was at FIU when I was doing those games way back when. I mean, he's been around. People don't realize it.
That was one of the things. Like, I couldn't believe that Mario didn't get the job. Like, he wanted the Miami job right at FIU. Like,
Yes.
he could have gotten it there. But I mean, and even Mario has grown as a head coach. He made some mistakes with clock management in the past, and I think he's certainly gotten better as a head coach. And Shannon Dawson's doing a great job as offensive coordinator. It's weird to be sitting here and you're looking at the big rivalry game with FSU this week, and there's hardly any national buzz about it because the Noles might be headed for 2-10.
Yeah, it's been disappointing in Tallahassee. We could do a whole show on that. It would be somewhat depressing, but we won't touch on that. Hey, I wanted to ask you this because I religiously watch your picks, etc. And on my show, it's touch and go with these picks against the spread, Chris. Yeah. I mean, college football is so unpredictable. And, I get worried, like Alabama, now a 13.5-point favorite. Notre Dame, a 13-point favorite over Navy. Oregon, a 21.5-point favorite over Illinois. What are your rules of engagement with the big double-digit spreads? Do you stay away from them?
No, I don't necessarily go into it trying to avoid laying a big number. If it fits and it makes sense, I have no problem laying it. I don't know if it makes sense with Notre Dame this week. I think Navy's pretty good, and I think they've got some pieces offensively that could maybe give Notre Dame, a depleted Notre Dame defense, some problems. However, with Oregon, I don't have a problem laying 21 here, even with the game coming up against Michigan next week. I think Illinois, if you watch them play, their offensive line struggles mightily in pass protection. I think Oregon, with their pass rushers healthy now, I think that could be a problem for Luke Altmaier. And if you look on the other side of the ball, we saw a couple of weeks ago Purdue really be able to exploit that defense with a mobile quarterback. Michigan didn't have anyone on offense to be able to do that last week. And now you've got Dylan Gabriel, who is his ability to move. He made some big runs against Ohio State to ultimately win that game. I think it's a bad matchup for Illinois. I've got no issues laying the big number there. And I would probably lay it with Alabama this week, too. I think the fact that you've got so many ex-players kind of calling out the program right now, like where we're at. You've seen some stupid stuff with personal fouls and penalties and inability to get teams off the field on third down. Like this feels like one of to steal a line from my old colleague Chris Bourbon, one of the circle the wagons type of games where where you think Alabama at home here should be able to beat a depleted Missouri team, because I have a hard time thinking Brady Cook is going to be close to 100%, Noel will be close to 100%, and this is an Alabama team in desperate need of a win. I would expect them to come out off of the loss last week and the close call against South Carolina and come out and play really well this week.
Yeah, Barry, it is interesting because you know how things kind of leak out, whether it's legit or not, I don't know, but they said the Alabama players now are coming out this week, tucking their jerseys in at practice. They're not showing up late for practice. I'm like, no, I don't buy that. I know Coach DeBoer is a different coach than Coach Saban, but I can't imagine he's running that loose of a ship down there.
No. If you're showing up late for practice, you're going to get suspended. That's a completely different issue if you got players showing up late for practice.
Hey, tell me this: first coach fired after this season. I mean, listen. I mean, the Brett Venables, the Lincoln Riley, the Billy Napier stories are all out there, and I hope none of them lose their jobs. I've interviewed all these guys, and they're really good people. But what do you think? I mean, are we in a position now where some of these presidents, et cetera, athletic directors are going to be making quick decisions after this year?
It's going to be interesting because that's a great question, because how much money is there truly to go around? Like if you got to like be able to like finance these collectives, and you're asking boosters for, hey, you got to buy our players, and oh, by the way, that terrible contract that we gave our coach, you need to buy him out too, and pay a contract for a new head coach. Like, you're asking fans and boosters and collectives to flip a pretty significant bill there. So I don't think Brent Venables is going to be fired. I don't think Lincoln Riley is going to be fired. I think Ryan Walters at Purdue will certainly be gone for sure. Around the SEC, I'm curious to see what does wind up happening with Billy Napier, because they've kind of gotten it straightened out a little bit.
Yeah, they looked good last
One
week.
of those things, Bruce Feldman and I were talking about it on the podcast as well, where it's like it doesn't do you any good to fire a guy during the middle of the season, because all you're going to do is make one of his assistants kind of your interim head coach, and you're going to lose all your recruits. They're all going to decommit and see what happens there. But Billy Napier is actually, they've gotten it together now. They're 4-3. They have a chance to make a bowl game, and shoot, after that Miami game week 1, you would have thought for sure that he was done, but he might not be done yet. I mean, obviously you hear the names about how they like to have Lane Kiffin or Eli Drinkwitz or Jed Fish or someone, but they might be in a financial situation where they can't fire him. And the same goes for Florida State. Like they're whispers there that they might be trying to come up with the money to buy out Mike Norvell, which would be, you would think back a year, and that would kind of be unthinkable as well. But there are a lot of unhappy people up there in the Panhandle right now.
Hey, Chris, as we wind it up, tell me this, because here I am in Alabama country, and Alabama fans, they're telling me, listen, if Alabama doesn't make the 12-team playoffs, we have no interest going to Tampa or Orlando or back to New Orleans. Obviously a spoiled fan base, understandably so. But are the bowl games now, I mean, are we on the verge of, I don't want to say extinction, but I mean, these bowl games, some are going to be falling off the charts?
Yes. We were already seeing that before we expanded the playoff, about how some of these lesser bowl games just had no. But now all you're doing is, instead of it being the December 28th bowl in a baseball stadium or whatever else, where you're getting the 6th or 7th place SEC team and the 7th team from the Big 12, where you're not getting fans to travel. Now you're going to see that elevated because your team is not in the playoff, and you don't have it. I mean, you're going to see all these guys opt out, and you're not going to get a chance to see your stars play in these games. So it is a very trepidous situation here, where the networks, and that's the thing. I don't think the bowl games are ever going to go away completely, because so many of them are owned and operated and have ties to ESPN mainly,
right,
who prop these bowls up, and they rate and people watch, and people like you and me could bet on them. But I think attendance is certainly going to be something that lags dramatically.
Well, Chris, we appreciate the time. I do want you to tell Mark Ingram to be careful. Jumping in the crowd and all that craziness.
Yeah.
I mean, Mark's on the verge of getting hurt.
A couple of weeks back, I think his battery, his IFB and battery pack and mic pack fell off, and I think right then he's like, that's the last time we do this now. So yeah, I'll tell Deuce to be a little careful this week.
Well, I do want to tell our audience, Chris Fallica, Fox's Big Noon Kickoff, but Chris is on. You can follow him on X. He's got a great podcast. And if you're like me, listen, I struggle with these picks, Chris. I really do.
I have to this year.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, it's impossible, and I get a hard time. People call in going, good gracious, Doug, when's the last time you hit like 3 in a row? I'm like, I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, a couple weeks back, I had a really nice week, and then last week we gave those right back. So, we're, like I said, only halfway through, and we'll have to finish strong.
Yeah, got to stay positive. Hey, Chris, we appreciate it very much. Good luck the rest of the season.
Thanks, Doug. Anytime, bud.